Hi guys, good evening, and welcome back once again to the EdWord. I'm your host Eddie, and in tonight's video I will be doing my episode review and recap for the most recent episode of CBS's Zoo. Now before I begin, of course, this, like all my episode review videos, this will be full of big spoilers for the most recent episode of Zoo called The Cheese Stands Alone. And it was also pretty graphic too, so you have been warned. If you're not caught up on Zoo, or if you're behind a few episodes, do not continue watching or listening to this video. You have been warned. And you've also been warned about how kind of graphic it was. That being said, this was the episode for me. This was the episode that made me, that I said to myself, yes, this is how Zoo should be. This is what I've been hoping to see since the very beginning. The first couple episodes did a good job at it, but it's like it kind of, it kind of lacked a little bit in between episodes until this episode really rejuvenated my interest, like big time. I was like, wow, that was really good. This is exactly the kind of episode that this show should be. Every single episode should be like this if they want to maintain its popularity. And so just to give you a brief summary, the team is sent to Pender Island, Massachusetts, a small island a small island in Boston, where Chloe's boss, the French director, tells her that a cargo ship that was infested with rats floated adrift towards the island, and then thousands upon thousands of rats swam to shore and they're now on the island. And when the local authorities brought the boat in because they couldn't get any response from the crew, it turns out the crew had all been killed and partially eaten by the thousands upon thousands of rats. And also, very noticeably, there were all of these shipping containers full of grain that were treated with the Raiden Global pesticide. So that's a pretty big indicator that Raiden Global is indeed the one responsible for all of the animal hyperaggression that's happening all over the world. And now, unfortunately, it's in these rats. So this episode was probably one of the nastiest ones. This was pretty gore. This was pretty nasty. I mean, it was like nothing but nonstop rat action. Now, the reason why I said this episode was a perfect example of what this show should be was that it showed people going about their everyday lives. Like, the perfect example was the exterminator who's in the abandoned hotel on the island. He's setting traps and he sees a rat. He follows it. He climbs up his ladder because he hears it in the ceiling. He pokes his head up trying to be as wise ass about it, and then hundreds of rats just come swarming at him. He's like, ah! And then they attack him. We see him fall. We don't see what happens to him, but it's obviously strongly implicated that he is killed. And I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what I've been hoping to see, is something like this, where animals finally start attacking people on a regular basis, where these incidents keep on occurring. And this episode was perfect for that. So Chloe and her team are sent to Massachusetts to find out what's going on with these rats, if it has anything to do with Raiden Global, and if there's a serious threat to the islanders who live there. And meanwhile, Jamie has to keep pretty much a low profile because she is presumably wanted by the authorities, even though there hasn't been any official word yet. She's presumably wanted for killing the rogue agent Schaefer in the stairwell while protecting herself and Jackson. So she's keeping a low profile, while Mitch actually departs from the team to go off and see his ex-wife and his sick daughter because they're in Massachusetts, and he decides to take the ferry to Boston, so they must be close to Boston. So Mitch goes to visit his daughter and his ex-wife, but also to set up a meeting with the CEO of Raiden Global to do the exchange. In exchange for Raiden Global getting the mother cell, they give Mitch the medicine that will presumably save his daughter's life. So Mitch is separated from the team in this episode while the others start investigating the rat-infested ship. They don't go aboard the ship, but they do start asking questions about it, and they run into the local sheriff, who happens to be a childhood crush of Jackson's, because as he revealed to Abraham on the boat earlier, the boat that was taking them into the island, he revealed that this place, Pender's Island, was actually a vacation spot he and his parents took years ago shortly before his father went batshit crazy. So it was like one of the happier moments and memories from Jackson's childhood, and he shares that privately with Abraham. And sure enough, he runs into his old childhood crush, who turns out to be the sheriff of the place. And Jackson and Chloe don't exactly explain why they're concerned about the possible rat infestation, but they do make it clear to the sheriff that they may need to evacuate if there is a serious danger. Of course, the sheriff dismisses it. She scoffs at it, thinking that there's a serious danger to any rats, and that nobody's hardly seen anything. Like there hasn't been any unusual rat activity or anything like that. So basically, they start their search. Where could all of these rats have gone? And then Jackson remembers the old hotel that his family stayed at when he was a kid, and it's been closed down for years. So that's where they take their search. Meanwhile, cut to New York, we see a middle-aged couple who are on a first date together, or a blind date, and it sounds like they've met through a dating service. And the woman and the man are making casual conversation. At first I thought to myself, as this scene was happening, I'm like, okay, maybe we're going to see rats start spewing out of the kitchen in this restaurant and they start attacking everybody. Or maybe this is setting us up for something else. And sure enough, it was. Because in this episode, it cuts back and forth to three different things going on. Three different scenes. Basically, our main characters on the island looking for the rats, Mitch visiting his ex-wife and his daughter, and then seeing Raiden Global's CEO. And then the third thing is the middle-aged couple on the blind date in New York. And sure enough, throughout the episode, it keeps cutting in between all three stories. And sure enough, you're like, okay, well, what's the story with this middle-aged couple? What's the deal here? Like, what's so significant about them? Well, as it turns out, when the woman and man start asking questions about each other, the man reveals he doesn't go into specifics as to what kind of work he is involved in, but he does mention how he's worried about his young protege. A man he considers close to be his son, since his real son moved out to California. And he's worried because he hasn't heard from his protege in quite a while, and he's wondering where he is. And, he tells the woman, that's nothing to worry about. I'm sure he'll call. And as they're walking, and they leave the restaurant, they're walking through the park, and they happen upon a single horse carriage, and the driver offers them a ride. And they're like, okay, yeah, sure, seems like fun. And the horse starts to irk, like it starts becoming increasingly agitated, like slowly agitated, but you can tell, like, uh-oh, something's going on with Horsey here. Meanwhile, back in Massachusetts, Mitch shows up and he takes his daughter out on a little lunch date to her favorite park close to their neighborhood, and he and his daughter kind of have a heart-to-heart. Like, he shows her the parking ticket he got on the day she was born 10 years ago because he parked illegally to make it into the delivery room. But, they're also trying to reconnect. At least he's trying to reconnect. His ex-wife and his daughter just seem totally uninterested in him since he practically abandoned the family. And, he's so desperately trying to reach out and reconnect with his daughter. You feel kind of bad for him, but at the same time, he's still kind of being a dick about it, too. So, this episode is about Mitch trying to reconnect with his family, or at least his daughter, because his daughter's the one who matters the most to him. Because she's the one whom he's going to betray the team for, because he wants to get the medicine that will hopefully cure her, but unfortunately he'll have to give the mother cell back to Raiden Global. Meanwhile, back on the island, the team is investigating the abandoned hotel, and sure enough, they see signs of rat activity, and their mission is to capture one male and one female rat to bring them back to Paris to study them and to figure out if Raiden Global's products are indeed affecting the rats, and thus affecting animals worldwide. So, Jamie isn't too hot about the rat hunt. In fact, nobody really is, but they decide to, go searching throughout the place, and they have several creepy encounters, and they do manage to catch one rat in a live trap, and they put it in a bag later. They put it in a bag, and then later when they go to check on it, unbelievably, the rat, which was supposed to be male, and it was a male confirmed by Abraham when he picked it up and handled it, confirmed it was a male, has had a litter. A bunch of little pink little rat babies. And they're like, how is this possible? What is going on? And then it hits Jackson. It's the it's the Raiden Global product in the grain that the rats were eating on the boat. It's served as an accelerant. This is an example of another genetic mutation which was enhanced thanks to Raiden Global's products. Just like we saw with the bears in the last episode, which they referred to, of course, the bears that grew tougher, thicker hides, an exoskeleton practically. And now rats, including male rats, have developed the ability to breed and reproduce asexually and really, really fast, because the whole hotel is just swarming with thousands of rats. And Jackson realizes that, like, what other genetic mutations are we going to see suddenly springing up in animals all over the world? Like he addressed in the last episode, but, like, how severe could they affect human beings? And as the elevator dings, you're like, oh god, no. And sure enough, the elevator's doors open and thousands of rats spill out and they start running towards our main characters. Yuck. Oh, my grandmother would have a heart attack if she saw this episode. She hates rats and mice, but mostly rats. But basically, Jackson, Abraham, and Jamie seal themselves off in a stairwell, and we see Chloe disappear. Fortunately, the rats do not pursue, but they still got to stick to their guns and find a female rat. Meanwhile, cut back to New York. The couple is enjoying a nice little ride in the single-horse carriage, and the driver's making conversation. And all of a sudden, the horse starts going increasingly faster and faster. And calmly at first, the driver tries to slow him down. But then all three of them realize something is horribly, horribly wrong with this horse. And it starts speeding like a rocket through the park, making people dodge and get out of the way. And it runs into, like, looks like a food tent, or like a food vendor had set up in the middle of the park, and it just crashes through all of these food tents. But by that point, the middle-aged couple and the driver had both thrown themselves from the carriage, so the horse just kept running like a rocket into the food tents and just crashed into everything and injuring several people. The middle-aged couple are okay, the driver is okay, but they're looking at each other like, what the hell was that? Like, what the hell just happened here? Cut back to Boston. Mitch has returned his daughter back home to her mother, and she's like, yeah, it was nice seeing you. And it's interesting. This was kind of a heartbreaking scene earlier in the episode when they're at the park, and she's like, I don't call him Dad, in case you were wondering. She's referring to her mother's new fiance. She calls him by his first name, Matt or Justin, I think. But she really says it in a condescending way to her father, Mitch. I don't call him Dad, by the way, just in case you were wondering. I was like, ouch. I mean, I don't blame her, but damn, that was cold. But, Mitch, he sees her off, and then he's left alone with his ex-wife for a while. They're talking. And then Mitch notices the golden retriever. And then he starts asking questions if the dog's been acting strangely, any abnormal behavior, has it been unusually aggressive. Fortunately, no signs of any of that yet. But he does warn his ex-wife that if the dog starts acting up and starts becoming aggressive, call him right away. And he kind of briefly touches on it, and he says there is an unusual behavioral pattern spreading amongst animals, and it might be spreading really fast. But of course, she doesn't really believe it. But that's not really what angers her. What angers her, what sets her off, is when he says, call me. And then she's like, call you? Call you? For what? What reason would I have to call you? And she just launches into him, which is in her right, because let's face it, he abandoned her with a sick child, so of course she has every right to be pissed. But she just rails into him about how out of the blue, all of a sudden he expresses interest in seeing their daughter, spending time with her, reaching out, communicating with them. Like, why after all this time? And she asks him why. Just tell me why after all these years, why after all this time? And Mitch, like, he's about to answer, but he can't, because of course this whole animals going batshit crazy all over the world thing is top secret, so he can't really say anything. Plus, she probably wouldn't believe him anyway. So he just leaves. He leaves her in peace. But he goes to his meeting with the CEO of Raiden Global. That's where we see him go next. Cut back to the island. Jackson is able to get a very, very crappy phone call because of a poor signal or reception in the hotel to his sheriff friend, and she drives out there to investigate because they call her for help, saying, "We've got proof that this hotel is infested with thousands upon thousands of rats. You need to get out here and see this and determine whether or not this is a threat to the community." So the sheriff's on her way. Meanwhile, Jackson, Abraham, and Jamie all to make their way, and they realize they have to go down into the basement because it's probably their best bet at finding a female rat and finding out where all of the rats are, because they all seem to be huddling and hoarding together. Like, all the rats are just like amassing together. And something else they touch on is that it's entirely possible that, like with the lions in Africa, going way back to the first 2 episodes, like the lions in Africa, these rats are all male and amassing together. Why just males, and why are they amassing together? It's kind of, it's a very complicated understanding. Like, what the hell is going on with all these animals where they have to do this? But they realize that, like, well, if these are all males, where are the females? And sure enough, there's like a cat-sized female rat that is nursing like male rats, like piglets, and as all these rats are just swarming all over the place, and then they realize that the humans are there, and then of course there's a ton of rats surrounding them, and they're on shelves and on cupboards, and they're like kind of like ugly prairie dogs, so like they're hissing and whatnot. And our 3 characters are surrounded, but fortunately, who should happen to show up? Chloe and the sheriff. And in the earlier episode, we see Chloe and the sheriff discover the badly mauled body of the exterminator from earlier in the episode, along with his flamethrower. And Chloe just goes Terminator on all their asses. Like, she yells at her friends to get out of here, and she just burns the motherfuckers to a crisp. Like, she's just burning all of these rats, and she's getting all of them. She's killing every single one, and basically sets the whole basement on fire. Fortunately, the fire department shows up. They put out the fire, and Jackson reassures his ex-girlfriend, that this was, that if there are any pups, they did not survive for long without the mother's milk, of course. So rat threat exterminated, literally. The rat threat was eliminated to the island. So now Pender's Island is safe. And the team is all together, and now they still have, I believe they still have the rat they originally captured, but now they're worried about what other genetic mutations could lead to further, like, astonishing freak of nature enhancements, like male rats reproducing asexually and giving birth at a super rapid speed. And, like, what other freak of nature anomalies could they see happening in animals anywhere? And finally, the last scene is where Mitch and the CEO of Rating Global are in his office, and the CEO says, "This is the best we've got. This is the best shot for your daughter, and this will most likely save her." And Mitch is like, "Okay, fine." And as he's about to hand him he pulls out the mother cell in its canister. He's handing it to the CEO, but he pauses because what's behind him, like through the other building, is a glass conference room. Who's standing there? But oh my God, it's Chloe's boss, the director of the French intelligence agency. Or maybe not the whole agency, but it's Chloe's boss. What the hell is he doing there? And it looks like he's talking and meeting with someone, and Mitch recognizes him. And, her boss is, like, talking to someone like this, like this. And then he looks and he sees that and he sees Mitch and he recognizes him. He's like, I'm like, what is going on here? Is he on Rating Global's payroll? Did they buy him? Did they pay him off to give them all the intel they have? Like, why is he suddenly there? I mean, hasn't he been leading? Hasn't he been spearheading this whole mission as to finding out what's going on with the animals and pinning it on Rating Global all along? Or has he been a Rating Global's puppet all along, trying to mislead Chloe and her team? who knows who knows what his reasons are. But now the worst part of this episode is that we don't even see if Mitch even hands off the mother cell to the CEO, because we just see a close-up of his face and we actually don't see the CEO take the mother cell from him, or if he willingly gives it to him, and that's end of episode. So this was like probably one of the best episodes of Zoo so far. In fact, if all of the episodes are like this on a regular, consistent basis, this show could really boost in popularity. I mean, it's popular enough, but it could just get better and better with more episodes like this. You know, cool animal action attack sequences, our characters, our heroes fighting them off. You know, just fun action sequences like that. And overall, great episode. Really enjoyed it. Would not recommend it for the faint of heart, especially those who cannot stand the sight of rats or mice, but especially rats. But you have been warned. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did. And thanks for tuning in here on the EdWord for all of your episode review and recap needs. Don't forget to subscribe, click like, and comment, and shout out down below. What were your thoughts and opinions about this most recent episode? Could you stand watching the whole thing? Could you make it through the whole thing with all of the constant rat swarms? Ugh. It was pretty nasty. And what did you guys think? And do you think that Chloe's boss is a part of Raiden Global, or is he a pawn in all of this, or is he there against his will or willingly? What do you think? Shout out down below. What do you think we're going to see in terms of animal attacks in this show for the rest of the season as we get closer and closer to the season finale? Oh, one more thing. So after... Whoops. Sorry about that. Camera almost fell. Sorry, I almost completely forgot. One more thing. Right as the woman is being taken to the hospital, cut back to New York, the woman who is on the blind date with the older guy is being taken to the hospital, alive, just kind of bruised, and then he gets a call on his cell phone, and sure enough, it's a guy calling him to tell him that his protege, number 12, as they refer to him, has been killed. Shot to death in a stairwell in a hotel in Alabama. It's Agent Ben Schaefer. And sure enough, the guy sends this guy footage over his cell phone, and security footage from the hotel lobby of Jackson, Jamie, and Schaefer all standing together. And the guy on the phone asks the older guy, "Do you know who these people are?" He's like, "No, I have no idea, but I'm about to find out." Is this a private defense? Is he a part of some kind of private security company that works for Raiden Global? Is he one of their stooges? Or is this another intelligence agency, since the guy didn't go into specifics as to what he exactly does or what his protege does? But now it's for certain the whole reason he was in this episode was to establish that Schaefer's death has not gone unnoticed. So somebody knows about it, and it's definitely not FBI. So whatever Schaefer and this guy are a part of could pose a very serious threat to our main characters and their efforts to save the world from this crisis. So, good episode. Really liked it. Hope you guys liked it too. Stay tuned for more videos and content, so don't forget to subscribe. Sorry about dropping the camera earlier. Have a great rest of the night, everybody, and of course, until next time, may the Force be with you.